Hello everyone, I'm Now Gao. Today, we're going to talk about India. We've made a video before about Indian mythology covering Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. We also mentioned India in another video, specifically in the Akashic Records episode, where we talked about a very famous Indian mathematician. Right. Today, let's discuss India. Last year, on August 23rd, India's Chandrayaan-3 lunar probe successfully landed near the moon's south pole. This was the world's first probe to land there. India became the fourth country to land a probe on the moon. The first three were the former Soviet Union, which achieved humanity's first lunar landing with Lunar 9 on February 3, 1966. The probe achieved a soft landing on the moon. This was also the first time a man-made object landed smoothly on the lunar surface. Before this, there had only been hard landings, which basically meant crashing into the moon. For example, the Soviet Luna 2 in 1959. The second country to achieve a soft landing was the United States. Just 4 months after the Soviet landing, on June 2, 1966, Surveyor 1 successfully landed on the moon, laying a solid foundation for the United States manned lunar landing 3 years later. From this, it's clear the Soviet Union was always ahead of the US in aerospace. For instance, they first sent a lunar rover, with Americans following. Yet, just 3 years after the US sent their probe, they landed on the moon, driving vehicles on its surface, and even launched back. Many, not just Soviets, found this hard to believe, especially as it was broadcast live worldwide. The third country to achieve a soft landing on the moon came 47 years later. In 2013, on December 14th, China's Chang'e 3 made a soft landing on the lunar surface. The fourth was another 10 years after that, in August 2023, and that was India. So, although India was the fourth and relatively late, it is still the fourth in the world. This means India is quite advanced in aerospace. This time, India landed near the moon's south pole, a historic first and more challenging than the previous 3 equatorial landings. They chose the south pole to search for water. Water at the moon's south pole has long been suspected, but it's unseen directly due to eternal night, area sunlight never reaches, completely dark. A probe was sent to look, but no water has been found yet. Why? The lunar rover only operates for 14 days. So what happens after it goes down? 1 day on the moon is 28 days on Earth, 14 days of daylight and 14 days of night. The rover is solar-powered, so it works only during 14 days of daylight. But after 14 days of night, there's 14 days of daylight, right? So it should be able to work again, right? But it can't. Why? Because the nights on the moon are just too cold, minus 180 degrees Celsius, especially near the South Pole. Back then, India thought, it's just a lunar rover, it can't withstand minus 180 degrees, the components on it will break. But they still gave it a try. After a month, they tried to wake it up again, but it didn't respond, and to this day it still hasn't woken up, which means it's really broken. Actually, finding water on the moon is extremely difficult. Either it's in places at the poles that are never exposed to sunlight, places that are always dark. If you want to look for water in those areas, regular probes can't even get in, it's just too cold, and there's no sunlight. Another way is to look inside craters, but that's also just searching here and there. Why is water so vital? Without it, nothing sustains. A lunar base needs water for human activity. It's also crucial for rocket engines, enabling long-term round trips. Thus, water is essential for a base. Otherwise, long stays are difficult, though short visits are possible. Last year, our video, America Restarts the Moon Landing Program, discussed the Artemis program. It's Apollo's twin. The US plans return to Moon 2024, this year or next, to prepare for Mars landings. Artemis program aims build lunar base, but no water found. So now, they'll likely build Lunar Gateway instead. This gateway won't be on Moon itself, but in lunar orbit, a base circling Moon, like International Space Station. Its purpose, provide supplies for Moon, meaning they'll build base, but supplies must come from Earth. It will serve as relay or transit hub. When transporting things to Mars, this will be used as a transfer station. If water is found on the moon, this problem becomes simpler. For days before India's lunar landing, something strange happened. On August 19th, Russia's Luna 25, the first human soft landing instrument since Luna 9, was launched to the moon, but astonishingly, its lander crashed outside the intended landing area. The previous mission, Lunar 24, was launched in 1976, which means 50 years have passed, and yet Russia's technology seems to be regressing. Haha, 50 years ago they could launch it without problems, but now every launch fails, and it's hard to get one up. Who knows, they've really regressed. So, you have to wonder, maybe back then the US and the Soviet Union were just putting on a show. If they really were faking it, then the only countries that have landed on the moon are China and India. That would be huge. The US last sent a probe to the moon in 1968. That was half a century ago, and since then they've never gone back. You have to wonder if it was real or fake. They say there's nothing worth studying there. Right. I bet if they tried to launch, it would probably crash like Russia's did. Can't they land there? This news gives everyone an introduction to modern India's development. What kind of country is India? India's feature is its population. India's population surpassed China's, making it the most populous country. India's population is 1.441 billion. China, which is in second place, has a population of 1.425 billion, about 16 million fewer than India. 16 million, that's roughly more than half the population of Shanghai, 6 times the population of Taipei, or twice that of Hong Kong. The key point is that India only just surpassed China a year ago, and in just this 1 year, it has already added another 16 million people compared to China. That growth rate is truly astonishing. On average, that's 1 million more people than China every month. Population growth is considered a key driver of economic development. Many believe India will become a key engine for the world economy. Wasn't there a 2024 prediction about India as a tortoise? Yes, that's mentioned in the 2062 prophecy. In Asia, only India remains. 5 billion people. Yeah, that's about right. Another major feature of India's population is its favorable age structure. It's a pyramid shape with many children and young people. According to World Data website data, the average age of Indians is 29.5 years old. In stark contrast to this is Japan. The average age there has reached 49.5. Japan is now the country with the highest average age in the world. In other words, the average Japanese person is almost at retirement age. The average life expectancy for Indians is around 67 years old, which is lower than Japan's. But honestly, this population structure is just unbeatable. Now, even though India has the largest population in the world, its land area is only 1/3 that of China, so its population density is 3 times higher than China's. The country with the highest population density in the world is Monaco, but that's due to some special reasons. Next is Singapore, also because it's a small country. But if you're talking about a large country with both a big population and high density, that would be Bangladesh. Its population? 170 million. Its density is 3 times India's and 9 times China's. Japan's population density, surprisingly high, is almost the same as India's, despite its shrinking population. Why is Japan's population density so high? Like Bangladesh, Singapore, and Monaco, it's due to extremely high land utilization. In efficient land use areas, without deserts or mountains, population density is higher because all habitable land gets filled. Pick Singapore, for example. The place where you live has a slightly lower density. In the suburbs, you can find a spot, but the city center is packed. Also, in India, there are over 2,000 ethnic groups and more than 1,600 native languages. Everyone speaks a different mother tongue. With 22 official languages, living in India is complicated. Issuing documents requires 22 versions, and with over 1,600 languages spoken, not everyone can read them. Next, India's history. Around 5,000 years ago, in the area now India and Pakistan, a large river existed, mainly in Pakistan. Alongside this river, the ancient Indus Valley Civilization developed. Because of this river, it was called Indus. In ancient Persian, Indus actually means river. This civilization differed from present-day India. Over a millennium later, another river near the Indus saw the rise of a more powerful civilization, the Ganges, also known as the Indo-Aryan. The original Indus Valley Civilization vanished. Its disappearance remains a mystery. The people of the Indus Valley Civilization simply disappeared, as if they evaporated. The city was abandoned, and people gone. Yet, They left behind clay tablets, seals, and ancient mud brick cities. Their script, the Indus script, is still undeciphered. It looks like this. It doesn't look complicated, but actually it is complex. For example, a single character can have many forms. They all look similar, but a little tilted. If the bend angle is different, the meaning changes. Each one of these is different, all different. You might think these two are the same. They're not. Look, the lines on the top and bottom of these two don't line up, but on this one, they do, right? Yeah, that's right. So, reading it is actually quite difficult. We don't know if this script is read left to right or right to left, because it's symmetrical. We have no idea what language family it belongs to. The most famous relic left by Indian civilization is in present-day Pakistan, Mohenjo-Daro. We mentioned it in our video about ancient nuclear wars, where we talked about a city of glass turned into glass in an instant. That's Mohenjo-Daro. Speculation suggests a nuclear war occurred then, as atomic bomb explosions turned land to glass, matching characteristics exactly. The city's people also vanished instantly. Mohenjo-Daro was built by the ancient Indus Valley Civilization. Analysis now suggests their disappearance might relate to other reasons. One possibility is climate change. If the Indus River dried up, they couldn't survive, so they migrated south. In southernmost India, near Sri Lanka, live the Dravidians. They've preserved a culture similar to the ancient Indus Valley Civilization, distinct from other Indians. It's suspected they originated from the Indus Valley. Since the Indus River is in northern India, they might have migrated south repeatedly, unable to survive there. However, even they can't understand Indus Valley writings. Another theory for the civilization's disappearance is that Aryans from northwest India wiped them out. Or perhaps they assimilated them. The term Aryan is familiar, we've discussed it. Their existence is a mystery. Many ancient texts, including Buddhist scriptures, mention them. India's oldest Sanskrit scripture, the Veda, records Aryans came from the northwest. What did they look like? Fascinatingly, they had blonde hair and blue eyes. It kind of gives off that Brahmin vibe, right? But Brahmins aren't blonde-haired and blue-eyed. They established the caste system in India, dividing people into 4 classes: Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. The Vaishyas were merchants and farmers, while the Shudras were workers and servants. So what does Arya mean? It means noble and sacred. The Veda is about Aryans praising gods in their hymns. Later, genetic tracing of Indians showed that Indians and Iranians to their northwest share a common ancestral gene. This gene refers to blonde hair and blue eyes. Their genes contain the gene for blonde hair and blue eyes. It's suspected this gene comes from Ukraine, northwest of Iran. Ukraine is known for people with blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin, right? During World War II, Hitler claims the Aryan gene came from northwest Ukraine, meaning the original Germans. He claimed they were the most original Aryans. They fought their way through, conquering Ukraine, then Iran, and even reached India, taking over these regions. It's said they were once the most powerful people. These Aryans, after merging with local populations, became what we now know as Iranians, Indians, and Ukrainians. So they were no longer Germans, which is why, according to Hitler at the time, only Germans were pure-blooded Aryans. That's the reasoning behind Hitler's push for genocide and racial purification. We'll talk more about this when we discuss World War II. So, after the Aryans entered India, they established Brahmanism, not yet the Hinduism we know today, and laid the foundation for Indian society. But at that time, India wasn't a unified country, it was made up of many small states. In the eastern part of India, which is now the border area between India and Nepal, there was a small country called Kapilavastu. The Sakya clan, one of India's noble families, founded this state. The Sakya clan was a powerful family. Sakya means capable, so this was a particularly capable clan. Around 2,500 years ago, during the time of Confucius and Laozi, a prince named Siddhartha Gautama was born in Kapilavastu. After his birth, the king invited 8 Brahmin astrologers, prophets, to predict the prince's destiny. All 8 said he would become a Buddha. What does Buddha mean? It means The awakened one, this prince would eventually awaken and become someone who feels like a demigod, half human. To prevent the prince from becoming a monk and ensure he inherited the throne, the king confined him within the palace. As for Prince Gautama, he spent his days in the palace reading, studying philosophy, and pondering the meaning of life. He kept thinking about one question: why do we live in this world? Why do we have to keep going through the cycle of reincarnation, enduring the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death? What are we doing here? He thought about this question every day but couldn't figure it out, no matter what anyone told him in Lumbini. He studied independently, reading books in the palace, seeking freedom from reincarnation. At 29, he left the palace for answers, finding enlightenment under a Bodhi tree. He became enlightened and became the Buddha. Wasn't the old king keeping him under house arrest? Yes, he escaped. Later generations called him Shakyamuni. Shakyamuni means sage of Sakya clan. For the next 45 years, he shared his enlightened insights, attracting many followers and establishing Buddhism as a major movement. Before Buddhism, Indians believed in Brahmanism. Buddhism emerged and instantly gained popularity, emphasizing equality. It taught that anyone could achieve liberation from reincarnation and reach the Pure Land through effort. This made Buddhism hugely popular. About 2 centuries after Shakyamuni, India was first unified under the famous Maurya dynasty. Just as Qin Shi Huang unified China, the Maurya dynasty consolidated its rule by promoting popular Buddhism. This original Indian Buddhism later split into 2 branches, the more popular Mahayana and the less popular Hinayana. Hinayana Buddhism focuses on personal cultivation to escape reincarnation and reach the Pure Land. Mahayana Buddhism, however, emphasizes helping all sentient beings achieve salvation from reincarnation. For more, see the previous video. Most temples follow Mahayana Buddhism. Yana means vehicle, where everyone rides together to the Pure Land. In Theravada, it's like taking a small vehicle alone. Originally, Buddhism had no concept of saving all sentient beings. This idea arose for governance. The ruling class thought, if everyone practices at home on their own, how am I to rule you? If you can reach the Pure Land practicing alone, without anyone leading, how could it be allowed? They had to appoint a leader for you. Yeah, a leader. So everyone can prosper together. That's important. After Mahayana Buddhism became popular, the Brahmin ruling class felt affected, as rulers were Brahmanism. They realized Mahayana Buddhism was more beneficial for ruling. They merged Brahmanism and Buddhism, which became Hinduism. They kept reincarnation and karma from Buddhism. They incorporated it, saying, even if you're an untouchable in this life, if you work hard, you might be a Brahmin in your next life. In Brahmanism, if you were born an untouchable or a warrior, you'd be an untouchable forever. There was no way to become someone else through reincarnation, absolutely no such possibility. But now, it's different. For example, by making offerings or handing over your land, in your next life you might go from being an untouchable to a Shudra, then from a Shudra you could move up another level and keep rising. So, after Hinduism emerged, money became important in India, making it easier to rule and for people to accept this system. Not long after Hinduism was born, around 630 AD, India welcomed a distinguished guest. Tang Sanzan's journey to the west to fetch scriptures was actually to obtain Mahayana Buddhist scriptures from the Western heaven. This greatly aided Buddhism spread in China and across East Asia. Original scriptures were popular in India, but truly flourished here after Tang Sanzan brought them back. Following his India visit, the country again faced turmoil, with conflicts, small states repeatedly splitting and unifying. 8 centuries later, in 1498, Vasco da Gama sailed around the Cape of Good Hope to reach India. Yeah, this is what's covered in the Age of Discovery. Later, several Indian cities were occupied by the Portuguese and became important ports. For example, the Archbishop of Goa is based in the city of Goa. You can check out our content on the Age of Discovery for more on this. Then, another 100 years passed. Exactly 1,000 years after Xuanzang's visit to India, construction began on India's most famous building. That's right, the Emperor of India then was Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan means ruler of the world. he built this mausoleum for his late, beloved wife. This Taj is not her name. It means crown, a title given to her later. She died from illness giving birth to his 14th child. This emperor had many children and many wives, including 9 official wives. The previous emperor had 20 concubines, each with many children. He allowed his other wives to have more kids. His favorite wife gave birth to 8 sons and 6 daughters. While having her last child, she fell ill and died. Before dying, she made 3 wishes to the emperor. First, Shah Jahan should not remarry. Second, he should care for their children. Third, he should build the most beautiful mausoleum in the world for her. To commemorate their undying love, Shah Jahan, who truly loved his wife, spent all royal treasury money to build the Taj Mahal. Its construction took 20 years, involving over 10 million craftsmen. Its scale rivaled the original pyramids. Yet, its completed appearance likely differed, being more exquisite. Shah Jahan, having depleted the treasury, faced an unfortunate end. His son imprisoned him in the palace, deeming him unfit to rule. If money is spent like this, won't our country be ruined? His sons fought fiercely for the throne. Shah Jahan himself fought his brothers for the throne, just like intense struggles between princes in ancient China, only more brutal. Now, the Taj Mahal is one of the most famous monuments to love in the world. In 1757, a century after the Taj Mahal's completion, Britain and India warred, India losing. Britain then began to devour India, gradually occupying it. A century later, they had taken over all of India. After a century of British colonial rule, India achieved independence in 1947. 1947 was post-World War II. During the war, India remained a British colony. Thus, India wasn't counted among WWII's victorious nations. India fought wars for Britain, making Britain the victor and India a British dependency. Upon independence, Britain divided the region into 2 countries, present-day Pakistan and India. Both were originally under British rule and have been in constant conflict since then. The main reason for this is related to Britain. When Britain withdrew, they hastily drew the borders between the 2 countries, but the boundaries were unclear. They claimed it was based on religion. Pakistan would follow Islam, and India would follow Hinduism. So, if you were Hindu, you would go to this side. If you were Muslim, you would go to that side. But the borders were drawn carelessly, and as a result, the very next day after independence, the 2 countries went to war. Now some scholars say that back then, Britain deliberately left the borders unclear. To prevent what? Basically, to make sure that once they withdrew, India wouldn't turn against them. Because you colonized us, right? Now independent, I might settle the score, but I don't have time, right? If you keep fighting Pakistan, what happens? The Palestine-Israel situation is because of Britain. In 1965 and 1966, the Second War broke out, and in 1971, Bangladesh wanted to break away from Pakistan, with India supporting them, leading to the Third Indo-Pakistani War. India won, and Bangladesh became independent, though it follows Islam, not Hinduism. India's development has always been very slow, mainly due to war and other factors. Its relationships with most neighboring countries are poor. Only the UK and Soviet Union had relatively good relations. The Soviet Union had a good relationship with India because in the 1970s, China and the US were getting closer, making the Soviet Union nervous. They sought to win over India to pressure China from both sides. Despite these good relations, both countries were very far away, providing almost no economic help. Countries that could help India economically didn't have good relations with it. This is why its economic development has been relatively slow. In India, the economy has always been controlled by the ruling class, completely barring foreign individuals or companies. Even now, entry remains very difficult. They'll impose all kinds of taxes, making it very hard to survive. With those taxes, it's tough to make a living. Later, in the 1990s, major events dealt a heavy blow to India. Its key ally, the Soviet Union, collapsed. At the same time, the Gulf War broke out, causing oil prices to skyrocket. India felt it could barely survive. So, it implemented reforms and opened up. India's economic development started in the 1990s. Developing its economy, India also developed nuclear weapons for self-preservation, lacking reliable external allies or friendly nations. India's first nuclear test was in 1974. Every nuclear test has a name. For example, the US's first nuclear test was Trinity. India's first was Smiling Buddha. Why do these tests always have religious-sounding names? Nuclear energy itself comes from an incredible, almost mystical source, releasing immense power from something invisible fields connected to mysterious forces. Plus, it gives off a sense of overwhelming deterrence and power. It's no longer from the human world. After this nuclear test, India didn't conduct nuclear tests for a long time. It wasn't until 1998 that they carried out another test. India conducted 2 consecutive nuclear tests to deter Pakistan. These 2 nuclear tests were conducted openly, unlike the one in 1974, which was not public. After these public nuclear tests, India became the first non-permanent member state outside the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council to possess nuclear weapons. This round of nuclear tests was called Shakti, a Hindu goddess representing cosmic power. India's nuclear tests aims to intimidate Pakistan, but 2 weeks later, Pakistan responded with 5 tests, revealing they already had nuclear weapons. India's prior knowledge is unclear, but their 2 tests were met with Pakistan's 5, openly showing their capabilities. Thus, 2 weeks later, the 7th nuclear-armed country emerged. These are widely acknowledged facts. The 5 permanent UN Security Council members are World War II victors, all possessing nuclear weapons. The idea, nuclear weapons create a balance of power, ensuring world peace. But now, conflicts exist, these victors constantly scheme. In the end, it's not justice that triumphs. Everyone claims victory in justice's name. The political struggle continues until one form of justice remains. This is a human trait. Why humans are fond of war will be explained in a dedicated video later. Moving into the 21st century, after 2000, China and India's economic development has been especially dazzling, China in particular. Jim O'Neill, chief economist at Goldman Sachs, proposed the BRIC countries concept in 2000, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. He stated these 4 nations would drive the world economy, while all European powers, Britain, France, Germany, and Italy, would see their economic influence fade. Why are they called the BRIC countries? It's because the initials of these 4 countries, when put together, spell BRIC. BRIC means brick, so they're called the BRIC countries. Later, in 2011, South Africa joined. Since South Africa starts with an S, it became BRICS, making it the BRICS countries. The combined GDP of these 5 countries is about the same as, or a bit less than, that of the United States, but together, their total population accounts for 42% of the world's population. These 5 countries make up 42%, so their impact on the world is huge. That's why India's entry into a relatively stable period of economic development has really only happened in the past 20 years. Before that, it was always at war or in turmoil. So, from 5,000 years ago, that's a rough outline of India's history. We've skipped several hundred years. If we get the chance, we'll discuss those parts in the future. Finally, let's talk about India's economy. According to Forbes' 2024 ranking of the world's top 10 economies, US first, China second, Germany third, Japan fourth, and India fifth. India's GDP is $3.9 trillion, ranking 5th globally, and it seems it will soon surpass Japan. However, that's less than a quarter of China's GDP and about 1/7 of the US's, so its per capita GDP is very low. You might find it strange. Economists are optimistic about India, everyone is bullish. There's also a very famous economist, an international economics professor at Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. Miles Guillen, right? This person wrote a best-selling book in 2021 called 2030, How Today's Biggest Trends Will Collide and Reshape the Future of Everything, where he talks about his predictions for the global economic landscape 10 years from now. He says that right now, China's economy is growing at a crushing pace on the world stage, and as for which economies could achieve such rapid growth like China in the next decade, he believes it's Africa and India. The reason is their rapidly growing populations and also their excellent demographic structures, especially Africa's demographic structure. India is similar in this regard, many young people, and Africa's entire population is about the same as India's. He's very optimistic about these 2 places. But everyone senses that with India, we've talked about its potential for years, but its economy hasn't improved much. Documentaries show what things are like there now. Most people still live in poor conditions, lacking food or clothes. Why? Everyone says its economy will do well, but it's completely different from China. After much research, many scholars think India. It might be at its peak now, having reached a plateau. From here, it could decline. It won't repeat China's economic growth. Why? India has a large population, but its economic and industrial structure isn't reasonable. China's main industry is manufacturing, while India's economy is over 50% in the tertiary service sector. The service industry differs from manufacturing and real value output. It doesn't actually produce value. Commerce, for example, is just selling to each other. If everything is in the service sector, it won't work. So, for India to develop like China, it must undergo industrial transformation. India's development future remains a mystery.